Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another episode of Wargaming in Miniature. And in this episode, we're going to be assembling a Robotech RPG Tactics model, the Quel Regult. And it's basically the Recon Regulates. Now, I've already constructed one right here, and this is kind of what it'll look like when we're finished. It's a Regulate with basically like your radar antenna on the top and a lot of extra sensors and things like that on the front. Here, let me get you a closer focused view. Okay, right there you can see that you got a lot of sensors all over it, antennas, radar dish on it, or radar plane on the top that you would think would spin, but I've never seen it turned, so it might just stay like that. All right. Now these are the tools that I've used. I'm using the X-Acto, the spruce snips, and glue, and that's pretty much the only thing I need, and a cutting board, so that I can assemble and do any cutting on it. Now I've already cut all the parts out, spruce snipped them, and gone back over with the X-Acto knife and trimmed them up. And these are the feet right here, the feet for the Quel Regulate, and these are the legs. They're wider in the front and narrower in the back, so be careful to do that when you mount them. They kind of look like they're pigeon-toed or whatever, where they're the feet or maybe hoofs. And then there's a hole in the top of each of these feet, and there's a pin on the bottom of your leg. All you got to do is put a drop of glue on there and stick it in there and hold it for a few seconds. These legs are one-piece legs, which are very good. You don't have to assemble them like some of the other Destroids and things. You just glue it in there just like that, and that's how it'll stand. So let's go ahead and put a drop of glue in there, hold it down, and apply pressure for about 20 to 30 seconds. All right, now that we got both of the legs already done, let's go ahead and start working on the torso. The torso is a front and back piece. It has the pin and hole on the inside. Just apply a thin layer of glue around the outside edge. One reason why I do that, instead of just hitting the glue in the pins, I like to do, when I build models, I always like to put my glue all the way around any connecting edges. That way it won't leave any gaps or any spots where when you're going to paint it there would be holes. Okay, so we hold that for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then we move on to the lower hip joint, lower torso. There's only two pieces. Now they have a pin in there. I want you to, I don't know if you can kind of see it, but it's a teardrop looking pin, and the hole is a center circle with a slot cut out of it. So when you put it in there, there's only one way that can go in there. Now when you put it together, it will still roll a little bit. So what you got to do is just be very careful and align the outside edges with each other so that it'll look seamless. Apply some glue, press together, hold it for about 20 to 30 seconds. All right, there's the torso. We're going to do a little work on that. We're going to put these two side arm plates on there. Now they have like these two lasers or antennas that stick out the sides. Those go on the top portion of the side arms. So when you put them on, make sure that is on the top. And then once you get both of those done, set them off to the side. And there's the lower hip. I'm going to show you how that hooks onto the actual main torso. There is underneath a very small, hard to see, kind of indentation in the curve of the underside of the torso. And on the top, there's a very smooth, flat piece. I'm sorry, the lower torso has a smooth, flat piece. Just put a piece of glue on that, a drop of glue, and when you press it in there, it'll fit. You just basically have to hold it in place. Give it about 20 to 30 seconds, and then set it off to the side. Now here's two really small pieces, but they're not the smallest pieces. These go on, they're like antennas, additional antennas that go on your radar, a radar plane. and then you just go ahead and glue them in their little holes right there. Sometimes they don't fit. What I would recommend doing is making sure you trim your parts down a little bit before you glue them in, just to make sure that they fit in those holes. If not, you can always trim them all the way down flat and then just glue them, you know, over the holes. However you want to do it. Now this is something that tweezers would be very good for, but I can't seem to find my tweezers. I've looked all over, even in my airsoft stuff, and I can't find them. Okay, got both of those on there. Now we'll just push that off to the side. And then on the torso right here, you'll notice there's a lot of little slots and spots that pieces go into. There's about 4 different pieces, and maybe 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, and they're all extremely small. I mean, very, very small. And I'll try to show you those here in just a second. Okay, what's the first one we're going to put on? We're going to put on the, I don't know what that is. It might be a camera, something like that, and it goes in the big. It's the biggest piece. It actually goes in this little indentation on the side right there. And it does have a sloped bottom, so you got to put it in where the slope fits with the torso, so that the camera's not sticking out the side. It's actually kind of more facing to the front, and you can do that by just rolling it until you get it to the right spot. And you should try this before. You should pre-measure, basically figure out exactly where it would go before you start applying glue. Okay, looks like it's in there. Just hold it for 20 seconds or so, or just let it dry. Now you have this moon-shaped slot. Okay, you can't see the part there. Okay, it's another light or camera, and it looks like it's another larger piece. It has like a boom arm, and this boom arm goes into that crescent cutout on the very bottom of the teardrop of the front torso, right where I apply the glue, right there. Okay, so you put that on there with the rocker arm or the arm on the outside, and the light will stay sort of in the center. There you go. Or it might be a camera. Or some kind of sensor. Maybe a noise sensor or sonar or something. Who knows? Maybe some kind of extra spatial sensor that they use when they're in space. All right, so then we're going to put on another lamp or light. It's a lot smaller than the first two, and it goes in the next little crescent moon cutout. And you just have to be very careful, handle it, and be sure not to drop it. And if you do, make sure it stays on your table, because if it fell into your carpet, it would probably disappear forever, and you'd never find it. See how small that piece is? Some people will probably just not even put it on, or they'll just, you know, give up. But if you've got some tweezers, or if you've got some good fingernails, you can get it in there, and it'll look better if you get it in there. Okay, we're going to let that dry. And while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and get the next piece. Can you see that? Now, let me see if you can see that. Yeah. Whoops. Okay. The less glue, the smaller parts, it should dry a lot faster. Okay, I don't know if you can even see that piece. It's an antenna. It sticks out, and it looks kind of like a knife. It's about the size of about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch long maybe. But because it's so thin and narrow, it's hard to see. And there's a little slot or a groove on your main torso. You apply the glue there, and when you put it doesn't snap into place or anything like that. It just sits right on the surface. You have to kind of just find that little slot. There you go. And then just let the glue hold it in place. And if you can see that, I'm going to try to show you that. Can you see that little antenna piece sticking out right there on the top? Yeah, that's small. Right there, yeah. All right. Now let's set that off to the side and let that dry for a few moments. Don't want any of these small parts falling off. Okay, now we've got the spotlight that goes on the top of the torso. I'm just going to put, no, okay, I'm sorry. I'm working with the, looks like a couple of antenna rig, and it goes into a slot on the side of your torso. If you will have to trim it, cut it until it fits down inside there. What I also do is put a little extra glue in there, and this is for when I do press the part in there, the glue will start to ooze toward the edges, and what that does is it seals it up and forms an extra, I don't know, an extra bond or an extra wall, so that when you go to paint, it basically zaps the gap. So you basically, yeah, see that? Okay. I don't understand why they didn't just make those antennas like something you glue on the side, like all these other little micro pieces. Okay, this is the spotlight. The spotlight goes in the top center of your Regult battle pod. Come on, put the glue there, right there on that little dot. Bloop, there it is. And then you just put the, not the antenna, the spotlight facing outwards. And you just hold it for about 20-30 seconds, let it dry, and then that's what it would look like with all those little extra pieces put on it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mount the legs to the torso since everything's dried, and then we'll go ahead and mount it onto the base too. This Regult is really simple. The legs a lot easier than the Destroids that I was putting together. There's a couple of like hip joints on the lower torso, right? The hips. There's little nubs, and they go right into the legs. And they're very large, and it's very they press directly against the torso, so you can actually just press it in and hold it for 20 or 30 seconds or whatever. But before it's actually completely dry, what I would like to do is the other side, the other leg, so that we can press them all together at the same time and make sure that the legs are lined up in a way where it's standing on the base. Okay, so we put glue on the other side, press it together, and now we can actually hold it together. But I got one leg sticking up too far. It looks like he's kicking something, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted this first one to just be standing directly on the base. So I lay it down like it's on the base, like as if I was gluing it to the base, and then I'll basically align everything so that it's just right. And then I go about just holding it for 20 or 30 seconds once everything's aligned. Make sure the torso's far enough forward. Make sure the legs are just right, and then just hold it. And then once it dries, I go ahead and get ready to put it on the base. What I need to do now is just apply a little glue to the feet and put it directly on the base. You got the front toe, and then you got the big flat hoof thing on the back. That way you've got like a 3-point contact of each foot. And then I just hold it down and press it on the base for 20 or 30 seconds. Okay, looks good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the radar dish post, or it's not a dish, I guess, the radar plane post. We're going to put that in the back. There is a spot you can see right there where it would go. And it's dog leg shape, so you want it to go out and up so that it will hold the pane upwards. And then we just glue it in place. Make sure it's lined up the way I want it to be lined up. Maybe tweak it a little bit just to make it just perfect. And then we press it together and we hold it until it dries. But once it dries, I realize that the plane, the radar dish plane, the radar, whatever it is, mechanism, will not stick to that nub that sticks out the top of it. So I just chop that off. I chop it off almost 100%. It's probably closer to like 90% of it I chop off. And then that way my radar will actually sit on the top of that. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit inside. I guess I could have painstakingly trimmed it down until it did fit, but I think that a smooth connection for the glue is even better. So what I do is just, now I'm dabbing it so that the glue gets on both sides, not only on the post, but also on the plane. And then once I feel that it's sufficiently tacky, I just give it a few seconds basically. Then I go ahead and mount it. Blowing on it. Blowing on it. Now I find the perfect spot and I hold for about 20 to 30 seconds. And that's what it would look like. It's actually finished. So let me go ahead and give you a close-up view, and that's it. It's compared to the one I've already done. Let's do a close-up so I can show you all the little pieces. This one was not hard to put together. It's just got a lot of little bitty pieces. You got to pay attention to all the small parts. That's really all it is. Okay, and then once it, you can see all the little lights and everything right there. I'm trying to point them all out to you right there. There's one there, the antenna blade right there, spotlight up at the top. Okay, and now what we're going to do here is we're going to compare the size compared to some of the other models that we have already finished, like the UEDF Destroids. Lost my mind there for a second. Put the old one up to the side, and this is the new one that we just finished. We've got a Spartan and maybe a Phalanx, and you can kind of see how it towers over them. And then we also have, maybe we'll pull a Glog out there, so you can kind of see how it compares with the UEDF, and it's, there's Tomahawk. All right, well, thanks for coming out and checking out this episode of Wargaming in Miniature. We at least definitely upload every Wednesday, but come out and check whenever you can, and I'll see you next time.